The alarm started beeping at 0400 hours, pulling Jake Morrison from a restless sleep. He rolled out of his bunk and grabbed his worn jacket, the one with the Wanderer patch stitched on the shoulder. Another day, another cargo run through the outer rim. Nothing exciting ever happened out here, and that was exactly how Jake liked it. He made his way to the bridge where Ben Carter was already checking the navigation systems. Ben looked up and nodded. The man was always early, always prepared. It was one of the reasons Jake had chosen him as first officer. "Morning, Captain. We're 3 hours from the Kelvar system. Should be a smooth run," Ben said. Jake poured himself coffee from the pot that Megan Phillips had started earlier. Their engineer was somewhere deep in the ship's belly, making sure the old girl kept running. The Wanderer wasn't fancy, but she was reliable. That counted for something. "Any traffic in the area?" Jake asked. "Nothing on sensors. Dead quiet out here." That's when the console blinked. A small red light appeared on the display screen. "What's that?" Jake set down his coffee and leaned closer. Ben's fingers moved across the controls. "Distress beacon, automated signal, coming from the asteroid field just outside Kelvar space." Jake felt that familiar pull in his gut. The smart thing would be to report it to the nearest station and keep moving. They had a schedule to keep, but he had never been good at the smart thing when someone might need help. "Change course. Let's check it out." Ben didn't argue. He just adjusted their heading and pushed the engines harder. An hour later, they were navigating through the asteroid field. Rocks the size of buildings drifted past their view screen. The distress signal was getting stronger. "There," Megan said, joining them on the bridge. She pointed to a small object tumbling slowly between two large asteroids. "That's an escape pod. Varathian design, if I'm reading this right." "Varathians?" Ben frowned. What would one of them be doing out here in a pod? The Varathians were a major power in this sector. They had advanced technology and a military that made most species nervous. They didn't usually end up floating in escape pods. Only one way to find out. "Megan, get the cargo bay ready. Ben, bring us alongside." The Wanderer moved carefully through the asteroid field. Ben's hands were steady on the controls. One wrong move and they would be nothing but scrap metal. Finally, they matched speed with the pod and used the tractor beam to pull it into the cargo bay. Jake, Ben, and Megan suited up and went down to check it out. Lisa Grant, their medical officer, was already there with her equipment ready. She was a careful woman, always thinking 3 steps ahead. The pod was small and dark. Its power cells were almost dead. Jake could see frost on the inside of the viewing window. "Someone's in there," Lisa said, her voice tight with concern. They opened the pod carefully. Inside was a young female, her body curled up tight. She wasn't human. Her skin had a pale blue tint and was covered with what looked like a thin shell or armor. Her breathing was shallow and weak. "Varathian, definitely," Megan confirmed. "But young. Maybe equivalent to a human teenager." "She's dying," Lisa said. "Oxygen deprivation, malnutrition, hypothermia. Get her to medical now." They lifted her carefully and rushed to the medical bay. Lisa worked fast, hooking up monitors and starting treatments. Jake stood back and watched, feeling useless. The girl's eyes fluttered open briefly. They were like crystals, catching the light in strange ways. Then they closed again. "Will she make it?" Jake asked. "I don't know," Lisa admitted. "Her body is shutting down. She's been in that pod for days, maybe weeks. I'm doing everything I can." Hours passed. Jake paced the corridor outside medical. Ben tried to trace the pod's origin using its flight data. Megan kept the ship running. They all waited. Finally, Lisa came out. She looked tired, but there was a small smile on her face. "She's stable. Still critical, but stable. She should wake up soon." Jake felt relief wash over him. "Good, that's good." He went in to see her. The girl was lying on the medical bed covered in blankets. Machines beeped softly around her. She looked so small and fragile. 2 hours later, her eyes opened. She looked around in confusion and fear. When she saw Jake, she tried to pull away. "It's okay," Jake said softly. "You're safe. We found you in an escape pod. You're on a human ship called the Wanderer." The girl's mouth moved. Strange sounds came out. Lisa quickly activated the translation system they used for alien trade partners. "Where am I?" The translated voice was young and scared. "You're safe," Jake repeated. "What's your name?" The girl was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke again, and the words that came through the translator made Jake's blood run cold. "My name is Zira. My family left me to die." Jake stood very still. "What did you say?" Zira's crystal eyes filled with tears. The moisture ran down her face in strange patterns following the lines of her shell-like skin. I was flawed. My exoskeleton is weak. I bring shame to my bloodline. So they brought me to the asteroid field and put me in the pod. They set it to drift. They said goodbye and left me there. Lisa's hand went to her mouth. Ben, who had come to check on their guest, looked like someone had punched him. Megan turned away, her jaw clenched tight. Jake felt something dark and hot rise in his chest. He had seen bad things in his years traveling the galaxy. He had seen greed and cruelty and violence. But this was something else. This was evil dressed up as culture. Your own parents did this? He asked, keeping his voice calm even though he wanted to shout. Yes, it is our way. The imperfect must be removed so the bloodline stays pure. I understand. I am defective. I deserve this fate. No. The word came out harder than Jake intended. No, you don't deserve this. No one deserves this. Zira looked confused. But I am flawed. My family said so. The doctors said so. Everyone agrees. Jake moved closer to her bed. He looked into those strange crystal eyes and spoke clearly. I don't care what they said. I don't care about their rules or their bloodlines or their idea of perfection. What they did was wrong. You're a child and they tried to kill you. That's not culture. That's murder. What will you do with me? Zira asked. Will you return me to them? Jake was quiet for a moment. He thought about the right thing to do. The legal thing. The safe thing. Then he threw all of that out and made a decision based purely on what he knew was right in his heart. No. You're staying with us. You're part of this crew now, if you want to be. And then we're going to go have a talk with your family. Ben stepped forward. Jake, are you sure about this? The Varathians won't take kindly to humans interfering in their business. I don't care what they think, Jake said. His voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. They threw away a child like she was garbage. Someone needs to make them understand that's not acceptable. Zira stared at him like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. But I am nothing. Even my own blood says so. Jake pulled up a chair and sat down next to her bed. Then your blood is wrong. You're not nothing, Zira. You're someone who survived when they wanted you to die. You're someone who kept fighting even when everyone told you that you were worthless. That makes you stronger than any of them. For the first time since waking up, Zira stopped looking afraid. She looked amazed instead. I don't understand humans, she whispered. Jake smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had just decided to start a fight he probably couldn't win. You will, he said. You've got time to learn. Because you're not going anywhere. 3 weeks passed aboard the Wanderer, and Zira slowly began to heal. Her body recovered faster than her mind. Lisa checked her vitals every day and reported steady improvement. But the young Varathian still flinched whenever someone moved too quickly. She still apologized constantly for taking up space and resources. Jake watched it all and felt his anger at her family grow deeper. On the 5th day, Zira was strong enough to leave the medical bay. Jake showed her to a small cabin that used to be storage space. Megan had cleaned it out and set up a bed. This is yours now, Jake said. Zira looked around the small room with wide eyes. Mine, but I have not earned this. I cannot pay you. You don't need to earn it. You're a crew now. Crew gets quarters, but I am useless. My weakness means I cannot perform valuable tasks. Jake pulled up the room's only chair and sat down. Tell me about Varathia. What was your life like before? Zira sat on the edge of the bed, her hands folded in her lap. I was kept separate from my siblings. They were strong and perfect. I was hidden. My parents only spoke to me to remind me of my failures. The doctors ran tests constantly, trying to fix my defective exoskeleton. Nothing worked. Did you have any friends? Friends? Zira looked confused. No, who would befriend the flawed one? It would damage their own standing. What did you do all day? I studied, I read. I tried to stay out of sight. Every day my mother would look at me with disgust. Every day my father would say I was a mistake that should have been corrected at birth. Jake felt his hands clench into fists. He forced them to relax. What did you like to do? When no one was watching? Zira was quiet for a long time. I liked to look at the stars. From my window I could see them. I wondered what was out there. If there were places where being different wasn't a crime. Well, you found one, Jake said. On this ship, being different is normal. Ben is obsessed with old Earth history. Megan can't cook to save her life, but she can take apart an engine blindfolded. Lisa talks to her plants, and me? I'm a human captain who keeps picking up strays and making enemies of powerful aliens. For the first time, Zira made a sound that might have been a laugh. It was small and uncertain, but it was there. Over the next few days, the crew worked to make Zira feel at home. Ben brought her books from his personal collection. Human books filled with stories of heroes and adventures. Zira read them hungrily, often asking questions about Earth customs that seemed strange to her. Why do humans value bravery over perfection? She asked Ben one evening. Ben thought about it. Because perfection is boring. Perfection means you never fail, never struggle, never overcome anything. Bravery means you're scared but you do the right thing anyway. That's a lot more impressive. Megan taught Zira about the ship's systems. The Varathian girl was smart, picking up concepts quickly. She was careful with the equipment, treating everything like it might break. You can be rougher with it, Megan said, watching Zira gently touch a control panel. It's built to handle some abuse. But if I break it, I will have caused damage. I will have proven my worthlessness. Megan stopped working and turned to face Zira fully. Listen to me. Everyone breaks things. I've broken things on this ship more times than I can count. Last month, I blew out a power coupling because I miscalculated a repair. You know what Jake said? He said fix it and try not to do it again. That's it. No punishment, no shame. Just learning. This is very strange to me, Zira admitted. Yeah, well, get used to strange. You're with humans now. Lisa was more direct in her approach. She gave Zira tasks in the medical bay, teaching her basic first aid and how to read medical scans. When Zira made mistakes, Lisa simply corrected them and moved on. Why do you not punish me for my errors? Zira asked after dropping a tray of instruments. Because mistakes are how we learn. If I punished everyone who made a mistake, I'd spend all day punishing and no time actually helping people. But it was Jake who spent the most time with Zira. Every evening, after the day's work was done, he would find her in the observation deck. She liked to sit there and watch the stars slide by. My family used to tell me I was a waste of resources, Zira said one night. That feeding me and housing me was money thrown away. Jake sat down next to her. Your family was wrong about a lot of things. Why do you care so much? I am not human. I am not even attractive by your species standards. I serve no purpose for you. You don't need to serve a purpose. You exist. That's enough. Zira turned to look at him. I do not understand human thinking. It's pretty simple, really. We believe everyone has value. Not because of what they can do or how they look or what their genetics say, just because they're alive and they matter. Even the flawed ones. There's no such thing as flawed. Just different. And different is good. Zira was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that surprised Jake. I want to learn to be like you. To be strong like humans are strong. You already are strong, Jake said. You survived in that pod for weeks. You didn't give up even when you had every reason to. That's the strongest thing I can imagine. While the crew bonded with Zira, Ben was doing research. What he found made him feel sick. He brought his findings to Jake in private. Captain, we need to talk. Jake looked up from the reports he was reading. What's wrong? It's about Zira's situation. I did some digging into Varathian law and culture. Ben pulled up files on his datapad. This isn't rare. They abandon imperfect children regularly. It's completely legal under their system. And it's not just them. 6 other species in this sector have similar practices. Jake felt the temperature in the room seem to drop. How many children? Unknown. But based on birth rates and genetic screening data, could be thousands over the past decade. And the Galactic Council knows about this? Yes, they classify it as an internal cultural matter. Non-interference policy. As long as it doesn't affect other species, they don't step in. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars streamed past in the faster-than-light blur. So we're supposed to just accept this? These species can murder their own children and everyone just looks the other way? That's the way it's been working, yes. Well, that's about to change. Ben hesitated. Jake, what are you planning? I'm planning to make sure Zira gets justice. And I'm planning to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. You're talking about going against the Galactic Council's policies, against multiple species traditions. We're just one small cargo ship. Jake turned back to face his first officer. So we start small. We make noise. We tell Zira's story. We make people pay attention. And then what? Then we go to Varathia Prime, we find Zira's family, and we make them understand what they did. They're not going to care, Jake. To them, she's not even a person. Then I'll teach them to care. That night, Jake told Zira his plan. She was afraid at first. They will hurt you, she said. My family has power. They have influence. They will not tolerate humans questioning their choices. Let them try, Jake said. His voice was calm, but there was something underneath it that made Zira shiver. Not from fear of him, but from the realization that this human was actually willing to fight for her. Why would you risk so much for me? Jake looked at her for a long moment. Because someone has to. Because you asked for help even if you didn't use words. Because I looked into your eyes when we pulled you from that pod and I saw someone who wanted to live. That's enough. Zira felt something strange in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize it as hope. What will happen when we reach Varathia? I'm going to have a conversation with your parents. I'm going to make sure they understand that what they did was wrong. And if they do not care, Jake's expression hardened, then I'll make them care, one way or another. The Wanderer continued its journey through space. Inside, a young alien girl was learning what it meant to be valued. And a human captain was preparing to start a fight that would shake the foundations of galactic society. Because Jake Morrison had learned something important in his years traveling the stars. Power and technology didn't make someone strong. Compassion did. And humans had more compassion than any other species he had ever met. That compassion could heal, but when it was paired with righteous anger, it could also destroy. And Jake was very, very angry. The Wanderer dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Varathian space. Ahead of them, the planet Varathia Prime hung like a blue-green jewel against the black of space. It was beautiful. Jake found that ironic, considering the ugliness of what happened there. Getting some attention from traffic control, Ben reported from the navigation station. They're asking about our business here. Tell them we're returning something that belongs to the House of Kelvar, Jake said. Ben sent the message. A moment later, a response came back. They're granting us landing permission. Coordinates coming through now. Zira stood at the back of the bridge, her hands clasped tightly together. She had been quiet all morning. Jake could see the fear in her eyes. You don't have to come with us, he told her. You can stay on the ship with Lisa. No, Zira's voice was small but firm. I need to see them. I need to hear you tell them they were wrong. Okay, but if you change your mind at any time, just say the word and we leave. Understood? Zira nodded. The Wanderer descended through the atmosphere and landed at a private spaceport near the Kelvar estate. The estate was massive, built from dark stone that gleamed in the sunlight. Towers reached toward the sky. Gardens spread out in careful geometric patterns. It screamed wealth and power. Jake, Ben, Megan, and Zira disembarked. 2 Varathian guards met them at the landing pad. They were tall and broad, their exoskeletons reinforced with metal armor. They carried weapons that hummed with contained energy. The Lord Kelvar will see you in the main hall, one guard said. His translator made his voice sound mechanical and cold. Follow us. They walked through the estate grounds. Zira kept her eyes down, her shoulders hunched. Jake wanted to tell her to stand tall, but he understood. This place held nothing but bad memories for her. The main hall was enormous. The ceiling was high above them, decorated with paintings of Varathian history and achievement. The floor was polished stone that reflected light like water. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat Lord Vex Kelvar. He was impressive in the way that predators are impressive. His exoskeleton was decorated with medals and jewels that showed his rank. His eyes were cold as they swept over the humans. When his gaze landed on Zira, his expression twisted into disgust. Beside him sat Lady Shira, equally decorated and equally cold. 2 other young Varathians stood nearby, perfect specimens of their species. Zira's siblings, Jake realized. They looked at her like she was dirt on their clothes. You return our discarded waste, Lord Vex said. His voice boomed through the hall. I am curious why humans would waste time and resources on such a thing. Jake walked forward until he stood at the base of the platform. He looked up at the Varathian Lord without fear. I'm returning your daughter, the one you tried to murder. Gasps came from the Varathians gathered around the hall. Several nobles had come to watch this meeting. Lord Vex's expression didn't change. Murder? He made a sound that might have been a laugh. We disposed of defective property. We followed the law of our people. We acted with honor. There's no honor in abandoning a child, Jake said. His voice carried through the hall. There's no honor in leaving your own flesh and blood to die alone in the dark. She was flawed. Lady Shira spoke for the first time. Her voice was sharp. We gave her life. When it became clear she would never be worthy of our bloodline, we ended that gift mercifully. Mercifully, Megan stepped forward, her voice shaking with anger. You put her in a pod with barely enough oxygen to last a week. You set her adrift in an asteroid field. That's not mercy. That's torture. You would not understand, Lord Vex said. Humans are primitive. You accept weakness. You celebrate mediocrity. We are better than that. We choose strength. We choose perfection. Jake felt his anger building, but he kept his voice level. You're right. I don't understand. I don't understand how any being with a thinking mind could throw away their child. But I'm not here to understand. I'm here to tell you something important. Threaten me, human, and you will regret it. Your species has no power here. No influence. You are nothing. I'm not threatening you, Jake said. His voice dropped lower. I'm making you a promise. Zira is under my protection now. She's part of my crew. If you or anyone in your family ever comes near her again, if you speak her name with anything but respect, I will dedicate my life to destroying everything you've built. The hall erupted in laughter. The sound echoed off the high ceiling. These Varathians thought humans making threats was the funniest thing they had ever heard. Lord Vex leaned forward on his throne. You think we fear humans? You think your primitive species has any power to harm us? We have technology beyond your understanding. We have fleets that could crush your colonies. We have influence in the Galactic Council. What do you have? Documentation, Ben said, holding up a data drive. Zira's testimony. Medical scans showing what you did to her. Flight records from the pod proving you abandoned her. Video of her crying, asking why her family didn't love her. And what will you do with this documentation? Lady Shira asked. Show it to the council? They already know our practices. They approve. The council might approve, Jake said, but I'm not going to the council. I'm going to every news outlet I can find, every diplomatic channel, every corner of the galaxy that will listen. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what the House of Kelvar does to children. Your name will be famous, just not in the way you want. Lord Vex's amusement faded. You would start a diplomatic incident over one defective child? I would start a war, Jake said simply. The hall went quiet. Lord Vex studied Jake carefully, looking for weakness or doubt. He found neither. You are either very brave or very stupid, human. Probably both, Jake admitted. But I mean every word. You hurt someone under my protection. Now you pay the price. One of Zira's siblings, a young male with a perfect exoskeleton, stepped forward. Father, let me handle this insult. I will challenge the human to combat. When I kill him, we can dispose of the defective one properly. No. Zira's voice was quiet, but it carried. She stepped forward, moving to stand beside Jake. You will not touch him. Her brother laughed. The defective one speaks. How amusing. What will you do, weak sister? You cannot even stand against a strong wind. Zira looked at her brother, then at her parents. I was taught that I was worthless, that my weakness made me deserve death. But I learned something from humans. I learned that strength is not about how perfect your body is. Strength is about what you choose to do when everything is against you. Pretty words from a defective thing, Lord Vex said. But words change nothing. You are still broken, still worthless. Maybe, Zira said. But I am alive. I survived when you wanted me dead. And now I have something you will never have. I have people who care about me not because I am perfect, but because I am me. Lady Shira made a dismissive gesture. Sentiment is weakness. Love without purpose is meaningless. Then you're more broken than Zira ever was, Megan said. You just don't know it yet. Lord Vex stood from his throne. He was tall, towering over all of them. This conversation is over. Guards escort these humans to their ship. The defective one stays here. We will finish what we should have done years ago. No, Jake said. The single word was hard as steel. Energy weapons powered up. The guards moved forward. Jake didn't move. Neither did Ben or Megan. They stood between the guards and Zira. You would die for this worthless creature? Lord Vex asked. In a heartbeat, Jake said. But we're not going to die. Because if you harm us, if you touch any of us, you will face something you've never faced before. You'll face humanity's anger. And trust me, Lord Kelvar, you don't want that. Human anger? Lord Vex laughed again. What will you do? Your fleets are small. Your technology is inferior. Your influence is minimal. You're right about all of that, Jake agreed. But you're forgetting something. Humans are really, really good at holding grudges, and we're excellent at making sure the truth gets out. By tomorrow, every human colony will know your name. By next week, every minor species in the galaxy will hear Zira's story, and then we're going to see how many of your allies want to stand beside the family that murders children. Ben held up his communication device. Already sent the files to 20 different news networks. They're broadcasting within the hour. Lord Vex's expression finally changed. The amusement was gone, replaced by something colder. You have made a serious mistake, humans. No, Jake said. You made the mistake. You threw away someone precious. You gave up on her because she didn't meet your arbitrary standards. And now you're going to learn why humans don't do that. We fight for our own, and Zira is one of ours now. The guards moved closer, their weapons aimed at the humans. Father, the perfect son said, let me kill them. It will send a message. Yes, Lady Shira agreed. End this insult. Lord Vex was about to give the order when an alarm started ringing through the estate. A Varathian aide rushed into the hall, his exoskeleton clicking in distress. My lord, the human news networks have already started broadcasting. The story is spreading. We're getting communications from other houses asking for clarification. Lord Vex turned to Jake. His expression was murderous. Get out. Take your ship and leave Varathian space. If you return, you will be killed on sight. We'll leave, Jake said. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot. They walked out of the hall with Zira between them, guards watching their every move. No one stopped them. They made it back to the ship and lifted off immediately. As they left the atmosphere, Ben checked the communication channels. It's everywhere, Jake. Zira's story is the top news on every human network. It's spreading to other species, too. Good, Jake said. He looked at Zira, who was shaking. You did great in there. I was terrified, she admitted. Being scared and doing it anyway? That's called courage. You showed more of it than your entire family combined. The news spread faster than Jake had expected. Within 3 days, every human colony knew Zira's story. Within a week, it had reached the other species. The image of the young Varathian girl, abandoned in space by her own family, became a symbol that crossed all language and cultural barriers. Jake didn't stop. He gave interviews to anyone who would listen. He showed the medical scans that proved Zira had nearly died. He played the recording of her saying those terrible words. My family left me to die. He made sure the galaxy saw what the House of Kelvar had done. Human social networks exploded with anger. People demanded action. They wanted the Galactic Council to do something. They wanted justice for Zira and for every other child who had been abandoned, but the Council stayed silent. They had their non-interference policy. They wouldn't act. So Jake decided to find someone who would. He reached out to Ambassador Nicole Hayes, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. She was known for being tough and uncompromising. She was also known for looking for ways to make humanity's voice heard in a galaxy that often ignored them. They met at a space station in neutral territory. Nicole was a sharp woman in her 50s with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Captain Morrison, she said, shaking his hand. You've certainly made things interesting. I just told the truth, Jake said. The truth has a way of being inconvenient for people in power. Nicole sat down across from him in the station's private meeting room. I've been looking for a cause to rally humanity behind, something to prove we're not just newcomers who should sit quietly and follow the rules the old powers set. This might be it. I don't want to use Zira as a political tool, Jake warned. I'm not asking you to, but her story matters. It shows what's wrong with the current system, and I think it's time we challenge that system. How? Nicole leaned forward. Bring Zira to the Galactic Council. Let her testify before them. Force them to hear her story directly. Make them look at what their non-interference policy allows. The Varathians will try to stop us. Let them try. The galaxy is watching now. 1 week later, Jake, Zira, and Ambassador Nicole stood before the Galactic Council. The council chamber was massive, a circular room with seating for representatives from dozens of species. At the center was the speaking platform where Zira now stood, small and scared but standing tall. The Varathian ambassador, a powerful noble named Lord Crick, stood at his species-designated area, his expression full of contempt. The council recognizes the human request to address this body, the council speaker announced, though we question the appropriateness of bringing internal species matters to this forum. Nicole stepped forward. This is not just a Vorathian matter. This is about the basic rights of sentient beings. The right to life. The right to protection from harm. Humans speak of rights they do not understand, Lord Crick said. Every species has its own culture, its own traditions. The Council has always respected this. Non-interference is the foundation of galactic peace. Non-interference is becoming an excuse for evil, Nicole shot back. The chamber erupted in arguments. Species that practice similar traditions to the Vorathians defended them. Others remained silent, unwilling to risk offending powerful allies. Then Zira spoke. Her voice was quiet, but the translation system carried it through the chamber. My name is Zira. I am Vorathian. When I was young, I learned that I had a genetic condition. My exoskeleton was weaker than normal. The doctor said I would never be strong. My parents decided I was defective. She paused, gathering courage. Jake stood nearby, ready to step in if she needed him. They took me to an asteroid field. They put me in an escape pod with minimal life support. My mother told me it was for the best. My father said I brought shame to the family. They set the pod to drift and left me there. I was 12 years old. The chamber was silent now. Every representative was listening. I sat in that pod for 17 days. I watched the oxygen level drop. I watched the power fail. I thought about how my family must hate me to do this. I wondered what I had done wrong to deserve death. Zira's voice cracked, but she continued. Then humans found me. They saved my life. They asked for nothing in return. They treated me with kindness I had never known. And Captain Morrison promised me something. He promised that what happened to me would never happen to anyone else. She looked directly at Lord Crix. I was told all my life that I was worthless. That being imperfect meant I didn't deserve to live, but humans taught me something different. They taught me that every life has value, that being different doesn't mean being less. And they taught me that sometimes, standing up for what is right means fighting against those who are powerful. Jake watched as several council representatives shifted in their seats. Some looked uncomfortable, others looked angry. But they were all listening. Lord Crick spoke up, his voice harsh. This is a sad story, but it changes nothing. The girl was flawed. By our law, by our culture, we acted appropriately. The council has no right to judge us. Actually, a new voice said, we do. Everyone turned. A representative from the Kelvin species, a minor power, stood up. I've remained silent on this issue because I feared speaking against the major powers. But I can't stay silent anymore. My species also practices genetic screening. We also remove the imperfect. And after hearing this girl's testimony, I realize we've been calling it culture when it's really just cowardice. Another representative stood, this one from a different minor species. I agree. We tell ourselves it's tradition, but tradition doesn't make something right. More voices joined in. Species that had always followed the lead of the major powers were suddenly speaking up. The minor species that made up the bulk of the council were finding their voice. This is inappropriate, the Vorathian ambassador shouted. The council cannot interfere in internal species affairs. That has been our law for centuries. Then maybe it's time to change the law, Nicole said. The debate raged for hours. The Vorathians and their allies fought hard to maintain the status quo. But something had shifted. The minor species had found a cause to unite behind, and humans had given them the courage to speak. While the council debated, Jake received a message on his communication device. It was from Ben, who had stayed on the Wanderer. Captain, you need to see this. The military is moving. Jake stepped out of the council chamber and pulled up the video feed. His eyes widened. In orbit around Vorathia Prime was a fleet of human warships. 30 vessels, including the Earth Defense Fleet's flagship. A new message came through, this one on a priority channel. It was from Captain Ryan Mitchell, commander of the flagship Defender. Captain Morrison, this is Captain Mitchell. We're here as humanitarian observers. We want to make sure that if the council decides to investigate child abandonment practices, we're ready to provide support. Figured the Vorathians might be less likely to cause trouble if we're in the neighborhood. Jake felt a smile cross his face. The military had his back. Humanity had his back. He returned to the council chamber where the debate was still raging. When there was a pause, he requested permission to speak. I have something to add, Jake said. Ambassador Nicole mentioned that this isn't just about one girl or one species. She's right. In the past 3 weeks, my crew and I have been contacted by dozens of individuals. Abandoned children from 6 different species, all left to die because they weren't perfect enough. He pulled up a display showing faces. Young beings from various species, all with stories similar to Zira's. These are the ones we know about. How many more are out there? How many children are dying right now because we're too afraid to challenge tradition? Lord Crick stepped forward. You cannot prove these claims. This is propaganda designed to interfere with Varathian sovereignty. I can prove it, said a small voice. A young being stepped forward from the viewing area. They were from the Kelvin species, the same one whose representative had spoken earlier. My name is Trix. I was abandoned 3 years ago. A human mining crew found me. They saved me, but I never spoke about it because I was ashamed. But after seeing Zira's courage, I can't stay silent anymore. Another young being stood up, then another. One by one, the survivors that Jake had found came forward. They told their stories. The council couldn't ignore them. They couldn't dismiss them as propaganda. The debate went late into the night. The Varathians and their allies fought every step of the way. But slowly, inevitably, the tide turned. At dawn, the council took a vote. By a narrow margin, they passed the Protection of Sentient Youth Act. It declared that all children, regardless of genetics in Zira, looked out the view screen at the planet falling away below them. What happens now? Zira asked. Now we go home, Jake said. You've done more than enough. You changed the galaxy, Zira. Not bad for someone who was told she was worthless. Zira looked at all the representatives, at the minor species who had found their voice, at the humans who had stood by her side. I did not do this alone. No, Jake agreed. You didn't. That's what makes it even better. The council had passed the Protection of Sentient Youth Act, but passing a law and enforcing it were two different things. The Varathians refused to comply. They claimed the council had no authority over their internal affairs. Other species that practiced similar traditions joined them in defiance. The standoff began on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. The human fleet remained in orbit around Varathia Prime. The Varathian military surrounded them. Neither side fired a shot, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time. Jake and his crew watched from the Wanderer, docked at a nearby space station. They had done their part. Now it was up to the diplomats and the military to finish it. But Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something more was needed. They're going to fight, Ben said, studying the tactical displays. The Varathians won't back down. Their pride won't let them. And if the humans fire first, we're the aggressors, Megan added. We lose the moral high ground. Jake paced the bridge, thinking. The galaxy was watching this confrontation. Every species was trying to decide which side to support. The major powers were with the Varathians, defending their right to self-determination. The minor species were split, some supporting humanity and others too afraid to take a stand. We need to change the conversation, Jake said. We need to remind everyone what this is actually about. What do you have in mind? Lisa asked. Jake turned to Zira, who had been quiet through all of this. How many children do you think are in danger right now? Across all the species that practice this? Zira thought about it. Hundreds at least. Maybe thousands. The screening happens constantly. Any child deemed imperfect is removed. Then we need to find them, Jake said. All of them. We need to show the galaxy what these laws really mean. Over the next week, Jake launched a galaxy-wide campaign. He put out a call to any abandoned children or anyone who knew of abandoned children. He promised safety and protection. He made it clear that humanity would defend anyone who came forward. The response was overwhelming. Messages flooded in from dozens of worlds. Young beings who had been scheduled for disposal. Adults who had survived abandonment years ago and stayed silent out of fear. Parents who couldn't go through with abandoning their children but had nowhere else to turn. Jake coordinated with Captain Mitchell and Ambassador Nicole. They organized rescue missions across multiple systems. Human ships, joined by vessels from sympathetic species, began picking up abandoned children and bringing them to safety. But the Varathians had been busy too. Lord Crix had been in contact with Lord Vex Kelvar, Zira's father. Together they had been organizing the traditionalist forces. Several major powers formally declared support for Varathian sovereignty. Military vessels began gathering near Varathian space. The situation was becoming critical. War seemed inevitable. That's when Jake decided to do something crazy. Working with Megan and a team of human engineers, he developed a broadcasting system that could send a message to every inhabited world in the galaxy simultaneously. It would use every communication satellite, every relay station, every network. Everyone would hear it. On day 90 of the standoff, Jake Morrison went live to the entire galaxy. He stood on the bridge of the Wanderer with Zira beside him. Behind them, through the view screen, the human fleet was visible against the stars. "My name is Jake Morrison," he began. "I'm a cargo captain. I run supplies to Outer Rim colonies. I'm nobody important. 3 months ago, I found a young girl dying in an escape pod. Her name is Zira. Her family had abandoned her because she wasn't perfect enough for them." Jake paused, letting that sink in. Some of you watching this think that's acceptable. Some of you have done the same thing. Some of you are planning to do it. I'm here to tell you that humanity will not accept this. We will not look away. We will not pretend that culture and tradition excuse cruelty. Images began playing behind him, the faces of the children they had rescued. Their stories, their tears, their hope. To every child who has been abandoned, every being who has been told they are worthless, every life that others have deemed unworthy, humanity sees you. "We value you, and we will protect you." Jake's voice grew harder. "To those who would continue these practices, understand this. Humanity may be young. We may be technologically inferior. We may be small and insignificant in your eyes. But we have something you seem to have lost. We have the will to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." He stepped forward closer to the camera. "This is not a threat. This is a promise. Touch one of our protected, and you will learn why Earth's history is written in the blood of those who thought they could prey on the weak, while humans watched." Zira moved to stand beside him. She looked directly into the camera. "I was told I was worthless. I was told I deserved death. But humans showed me something different. They showed me that every life matters. That being different is not a crime. That families should protect, not destroy." Jake put his hand on her shoulder. "The stars themselves will shake before we allow another child to die in darkness, alone and unloved. We're drawing a line. On one side are those who value life. On the other are those who throw it away. Choose your side carefully, because humanity remembers. And humanity never forgives those who hurt children." The broadcast ended. For a long moment, the galaxy held its breath. Then things began to happen fast. The minor species that had been sitting on the fence started making their positions clear. They issued statements supporting the Protection Act. Some sent their own ships to join the human fleet. It wasn't about military power anymore. It was about taking a stand. The major powers found themselves increasingly isolated. Their allies among the minor species were abandoning them. Public opinion was turning against them. The traditionalists had made themselves into villains. Within 24 hours, cracks appeared in the Varathian position. Several noble houses announced they would comply with the new council law. They claimed they had always been uncomfortable with the abandonment practice but had been afraid to speak out. Lord Vex Kelvar's position became untenable. His own house turned against him. The Varathian government, seeing which way the wind was blowing, announced a formal investigation into child abandonment practices. They promised reforms. It wasn't enough. Not for Jake. He contacted the Varathian authorities directly and made his demands clear. Lord Vex Kelvar had to face justice for what he did to Zira. The family had to be held accountable. The Varathian government agreed. They didn't have a choice. The alternative was continued isolation and possible war with an increasingly united coalition. Lord Vex Kelvar was arrested along with his wife. They were charged under the new galactic law. Their trial was public and widely broadcast. For the first time, a noble family was being held accountable for child abandonment. Jake testified at the trial. So did Zira. She stood before her parents one last time and told them exactly what they had done to her. She described the 17 days in that pod waiting to die. She described the fear and the loneliness and the desperate hope that someone, anyone, would come. Lord Vex showed no remorse. "I did what was necessary for the bloodline," he said. "The weak must be removed." "Then you removed yourself," the judge declared. "Because strength is not about genetics. It's about character, and you have none." The sentence was severe. Stripped of titles, wealth, and honor, exile from Varathian space. They would live the rest of their lives as the outcasts they had tried to make their daughter. But the victory went beyond one family. Within 6 months, 5 of the 6 species that practiced child abandonment had formally ended the practice. The 6th, a stubborn power that refused to change, found itself isolated and cut off from trade and diplomatic relations. The Protection Act was being enforced. Children across the galaxy were being protected instead of discarded. Jake returned to the Wanderer, but his crew was different now. Zira remained with them, now officially registered as a human citizen. But she wasn't the only one. 3 other rescued children had asked to stay with Jake's crew. They wanted to help find more children who needed saving. The Wanderer became something more than a cargo ship. It became a rescue vessel. Jake and his crew traveled the outer rim, looking for those who needed help. They found abandoned children. They found species being oppressed. They found injustice and they fought it. Other humans followed Jake's example. Rescue ships spread across the galaxy. Humans became known as the species that would help anyone, no matter who they were or what they looked like. The galaxy learned that threatening someone under human protection was a very bad idea. One evening, 6 months after everything had changed, Jake sat in the observation deck with Zira. They watched the stars slide by in faster-than-light travel. "Do you regret it?" Zira asked. "Starting all of this?" Jake thought about the question. "No, do you? I regret the pain it caused, the conflict, but I don't regret the result." Zira was quiet for a moment. "My family is in exile now. They've lost everything." "How do you feel about that?" "I feel free. For the first time in my life, I don't carry their shame. I have a new family now. One that chose me." Jake smiled. "Best family I've ever had, too." "Jake, there's something I need to know. That broadcast you made when you said the stars would shake. Did you really mean it? Would you have gone to war over me?" Jake turned to look at her. "Zira, I would have burned the galaxy down if it meant keeping you safe. You and every other child like you. That's terrifying." "Yeah, but it's also the truth. Humans are like that. We love hard and we fight harder when someone threatens what we love." "The other species fear humanity now," Zira observed. "They call humans dangerous, unpredictable." "Good," Jake said. "Let them fear us. As long as that fear keeps them from hurting the innocent, I'm fine with it." They sat in comfortable silence watching stars stream past. Out there in the vast galaxy, children were sleeping safely because of what they had done. Families were staying together. Lives were being valued instead of discarded. The Wanderer received a new message. Another distress call. Another child who needed help. Jake stood up. "Looks like we've got work to do." Zira stood too. "We're ready." They headed to the bridge where the rest of the crew was already gathering. Ben was plotting a course. Megan was checking the engines. Lisa was preparing the medical bay. The other rescued children were at their stations, ready to help bring another lost soul home. This was their life now, traveling the stars, fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves, making sure that no child ever felt the despair that Zira had felt in that pod. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. They had learned that humanity's compassion was a powerful force, but they had also learned something else, something that made even the mightiest powers think twice before acting. They had learned that humanity's wrath when defending the innocent was a force that could shake the very foundations of civilization. That humans would stand against any power, any tradition, any law that harmed children. The stars had trembled, and they would tremble again if needed, because Jake Morrison and thousands of humans like him had made a promise to protect those who needed protection, a promise to fight those who preyed on the weak, a promise to never look away from injustice. And humanity always kept its promises. The Wanderer jumped to faster than light speed, racing toward another rescue. Behind them across the galaxy, the changes they had started continued to spread. The Protection Act was being enforced. More species were abandoning harmful traditions. More children were growing up safe and loved. All because one cargo captain had found a dying girl and decided that enough was enough. All because humanity had looked at the darkness and decided to light a fire. The fire was spreading, and the galaxy would never be the same.